News Miami. This is Facing South Florida with Jim DeFede.
Welcome to Facing South Florida. I'm Jim DeFede, and later we will give you an update on what's happening in Tallahassee when we talk to State Senator Chevron Jones. But we start with the continued aftermath to the historic flooding in Broward County earlier this month. Fort Lauderdale Mayor Dean Trantalis just returned from a trip to Washington, where he met with White House officials about the recovery efforts. Tell me about your trip to Washington. How did it go?
So we knew that the only way we were going to be able to accomplish some of the things that needed to be done quickly was to go to Washington. Through a contact I had at the White House, we were able to meet with Mitch Landrieu, who is the former mayor of New Orleans, who is now President Biden's director of infrastructure programming. He oversees all the infrastructure programming throughout the multiple departments. Had a great meeting with him and his deputy, and we are going to continue to work together to try to funnel money to our community. He was also instrumental in helping to get FEMA to gather its data and to then send that over to the White House. And as a result, we got our disaster declaration this morning. And we're very proud and pleased with the administration for moving so quickly.
What does that mean exactly? When the White House declares a national disaster for the area, what in practical terms does that mean?
That means that the funding that can normally flow through FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, can now happen. And FEMA will now be back on the ground to help assist families who were impacted by the flooding to be able to receive federal assistance. The sad thing is, though, that federal assistance is not entirely 100% going to make you 100% whole. There is significant money that can be allocated to our community, but I do think it's time for the city of Fort Lauderdale to pony up and to also provide supplemental funding. I'm going to recommend next week to the City Commission that we add $5,000 per household to be able to help augment the kind of disaster relief that FEMA will be able to provide.
Just briefly, let's stick with Washington for a second. You also know, I know you met with both Republican and Democrat members of the House and Senate, and this is one of those areas where we don't see a lot of bipartisanship out of Washington, but here you saw it. Talk to me a little bit about the various members that were helping you, as we would hope that they would.
So yes, this is definitely a bipartisan, nonpartisan issue. We had an opportunity here to work with all of our representatives to be able to try to put through the red tape and get this stuff done. And that was the whole point of going to Washington. FaceTime, meeting, handshaking, thanking. This is an opportunity to do that, and also to build our connections with our representatives going forward for anything else that may come down the road. So we met with administration officials, like I had said, and we also met with Senator Rubio. I was on the phone with Jared Moskowitz, and again, we met with Department of Transportation officials, including the Secretary, talk about the funding for the new City Hall, what opportunities there are for that, because there are transit-oriented development funds that we can tap into to build a City Hall. So that was the main point of our going there.
Well, let's take a step back for a second. Give us a broader update on where you see the state of things right now in not just Fort Lauderdale, but the surrounding area. How bad are things still? And give us a sense of what the road to recovery is going to look like.
The road to recovery is going to be slow for those homes that were really impacted. Many people were displaced from their homes. Their living rooms were floating out in the middle of the street. This was a terrible disaster for many homes in our Edgewood, Melrose Park, Melrose Manors area, Dorsey Riverbend, Riverside. These areas, which, by the way, we were already undertaking storm remediation programs. We had passed a bond measure, almost $200 million, to build stormwater retention and placement systems in these neighborhoods. It got ahead of us. The culverts were on the ground. Some of it was already installed. The city was moving forward and trying to make sure that these neighborhoods no longer suffer the flooding they did. The rest of the city has pretty much recovered, and we're able to continue business. We're having the air show this weekend, and And we're going to be back on our feet before too long. But sections of our city were more devastated than others. I would say the rest of the city has pretty much recovered.
I realize you don't oversee the airport, Fort Lauderdale International Airport. That's a county function more than a city function. But I'm just sort of curious because when I see water that high on runways for such a long period of time, I got to be honest, I begin to think not just the natural disaster part of it, but whether or not there are issues of design or other concerns that this exposes. Have you heard any discussion or any talk about why the airport was in such bad condition to be able to deal with rain?
Good question. I don't know the answer to that. As you know, it is not a city facility. Our airport is doing fine. We did not have a serious flooding impact. But the thing is that we have some residual risk that we have to consider, because the runway, while the water is now gone, it has damaged parts of the runway itself it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of money to replace and repair. It's still not safe to use that runway. Right now, I understand the county is using its newer runway, which is elevated and which did not suffer the water impact. But there needs to be a better storm drainage system there. There needs to be a better system to draw away that water, not just at the airport, but also at the seaport. The port itself was shut down, and as you know, there were gasoline deliveries that were held up. And but we're prepared to work with the county in any way we can, any time they ask for our assistance, to try to bring those facilities back to 100% usability. But yes, you are correct. What happened there? We do not.
How many homes do you believe were destroyed? What's the best current estimate?
Well, according to FEMA, within the city of Fort Lauderdale itself, over 900 homes were considered seriously damaged. Perhaps a little under 300 homes were considered less seriously damaged. So those are the kinds of numbers we're working with, and those are the kinds of measures that FEMA uses. There were other homes outside of Fort Lauderdale that also were impacted. I think that brought the number over 1,100. So, but it is a mess. But as the mayor of the city of Fort Lauderdale, we are committed to making sure everybody finds a dry place and can get themselves back on their feet. And we need to start thinking about what we're going to do with our new city hall.
Well, that was where I was going to go. Not just homeowners, but talk to me about the damage done to City Hall.
So, being an antiquated structure, much of the brains of the city hall were in the butt of the building. The air conditioning system, the electrical system, even the servers that were on another floor were impacted as a result of that, the flooding of the basement. And it fried our entire building. Mold is now throughout the building, if it wasn't already there to begin with. The city had already been contemplating building a new city hall. It wasn't as if this is a shock to us, but it's a shock that we have to deal with it so quickly. And we need to, we're going to now displace all of our workers. Either they're going to work at home or they're going to work in surrounding empty offices that we will now occupy in the downtown. And we need to move forward quickly. We spoke with, like I said, the Department of Transportation folks. There's transit-oriented development funding that we can tap into, and they're especially eager that we consider a P3 or public-private partnership to help accelerate the process. They're very keen on that approach, and so we're going to put it out there, and hopefully we can get something done in the next 24 to 30 months.
To what extent are you able to use the old City Hall? Is it unusable at this point? Is there any effort to rehab and continue using it, or is it just now a dead building for all intent and purposes?
It pretty much is a dead building. Our consultants and our city staff have both concluded that the cost to rehabilitate the building is not worth the expense or the effort. And like I said, we had not planned to keep the building. We had intended to tear it down anyway because it's functionally obsolete even before the flood. So we're now seeing the necessity to move forward as quickly as possible. And like I said, if the commission can come together and decide on the P3 approach, we should be able to be in a new building within 24 to 30 months.
And same location, no contemplation at this point of moving to a different location, continuing to build, tear down and build on the existing site.
I think it makes the most sense. First of all, we own the real estate, so we don't have to go out in this market and try to find a new site at whatever cost that would be. And secondly, to be able to tap into transit-oriented development funds, we have to be close to a transit center, and that's where Brightline and the bus center are. So that's one of the considerations that we must remember if we're going to look for federal funding that's in the rebuilding of our city hall.
It seems like this now becomes the main focus. It's, you know, of your term as mayor and for a lot of your fellow commissioners as well.
It certainly is a priority, but it doesn't distract us from our other necessities. We're going to continue with the stormwater mitigation program that we have in these neighborhoods. That has resumed, and we're going to continue with that. We have all kinds of projects going on in the city, raising seawalls, responding to climate change challenges all over. We're a pretty sophisticated city, and I think we can handle it all.
When we come back, the latest in Tallahassee. Stay with us.